what if the secret to, a perfectly optimized life isn't actually pushing yourself to the absolute limit, but intentionally holding yourself back?
Right, which is completely opposite to the standard advice we're bombarded with every single day.
Oh, totally.
I mean, we're so conditioned to believe that progress only happens at the extremes. Like, that last grueling rep at the gym or burning the midnight oil at work.
Yeah, I know. I fall into that trap all the time. Like, if I feel good on a run, I'll just push for an extra mile.
Even if it wrecks your knees for the rest of the week, right?
Exactly. But the primary source we're examining today actively rejects that kind of behavior.
Which is what makes it so fascinating.
Right. So we're doing a deep dive into a blog by an author named Eng, and he describes himself simply as an old software plumber.
And, that background is really crucial for understanding his whole methodology.
How so?
Well, a software plumber is someone who fixes the invisible leaks in code. They ensure the logic flows, and they maintain the hidden infrastructure that basically keeps everything from crashing.
Right.
And he takes that exact same mindset, that patient, methodical maintenance of complex systems, and applies it to his own biology, his home, his free time.
The sheer dedication of this guy is honestly something to behold. I mean, his blog archives stretch all the way back to 2011.
Whoa.
Yeah. But today, we're zeroing in on a very specific entry. It's his This Week in Review post for 2026, week 15.
Okay.
So the mission for you, the listener, is to really extract the actionable wisdom from how a veteran programmer approaches the ultimate complex systems.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with how he debugs his own physical health.
Yeah, so he treats his physical wellness as this ongoing effort to build what he calls long-term resilience.
Which sounds great, but what does that actually look like?
Well, he logs his daily inputs and outputs with, honestly, incredible precision. For instance, he aims for a daily sleep window of 6, 7, or 8 hours.
Okay, pretty standard.
Right, and during the specific week 15, he averaged 7.1 hours of sleep per day. But the data showed a massive anomaly, a 10-hour sleep spike. See, when I have a random sleep anomaly like that, I usually just, I don't know, blame caffeine or stress and just guess at what caused it.
Right, but he doesn't guess. He actually attributes this 10-hour spike to an unknown fever or sickness.
Oh, interesting. So it's like his biological system just forced a hard reboot to run diagnostics?
Exactly. But here's the thing. He mentions that on the remaining days of the week, his overall sleep quality actually improved.
Wait, improved?
Yeah, even though he was having fragmented sleep and a lot more dreams.
Okay, but how on earth does he isolate the exact variable that fixed his sleep out of, a dozen different daily inputs?
Because he correlates the improvement to a combination of very specific, tangible interventions. He looks at the overlapping data.
Okay.
He attributes the better sleep quality to regular massaging, using a heat pad, and increased physical chores, specifically like a lot of gardening.
Huh.
And he also factors in an environmental variable, the start of the rainy season, which lowered the ambient temperature.
Okay, let me make sure I understand the biology here, because frankly, those seem like really random activities. Like, how do a heat pad and pulling weeds actually repair fragmented sleep?
Yeah, it sounds weird, but it comes down to nervous system regulation and the difference between physical exhaustion versus mental exhaustion.
Oh, right, because he works in digital abstraction all day.
Exactly. His brain is exhausted, but his body is totally restless. So gardening provides genuine physical fatigue.
That makes sense. And the heat pad?
The heat pad and the massage act as localized vasodilation. They open up the blood vessels and physically force the muscles to release tension.
Oh.
Yeah, and combined with a drop in ambient temperature from the rain, which signals the body to release melatonin, he essentially engineered the perfect biological environment for deep recovery.
So his strategy moving forward isn't just some vague, New Year's resolution to sleep better. It's an actual protocol.
Right. Proceed with regular massaging, utilize the heat pad, maintain the yard work. He found the patch that works, and he's sticking to it.
Which brings us to the physical activity itself. So this week, he averaged 6,133 steps a day. But it wasn't a completely smooth ride.
No, it wasn't.
He notes that he suffered from knee pain and muscle spasms from prolonged squatting while he was weeding in that same garden.
And here is where his approach diverges wildly from the norm.
Yeah, because usually, people are told to just grind through the pain. Like if your goal is 10,000 steps, you hit 10,000 steps, even if you're literally limping.
Right, the whole no pain, no gain thing.
Exactly. But Aang intentionally caps his daily steps. He aims to keep them strictly between 5,500 and 6,500.
Which is fascinating.
But isn't that incredibly frustrating? I mean, human nature says that if you feel good, you should just keep going. It takes immense discipline to just stop at 6,500 steps.
It does take discipline, but mostly it requires a shift in perspective. I mean, he completely rejects that grind culture mentality because, well, from an engineering standpoint, it is incredibly inefficient.
Oh, I see. Because you're stressing the system.
Exactly. Pushing a system to the point of overheating just to hit an arbitrary metric like 10,000 steps is terrible management. He recognizes that his body is a system that needs to run for decades.
So the cap is basically a hard-coded safety mechanism to prevent a larger crash.
Yes, exactly. He focuses on strength recovery 2 to 3 times weekly. So when the inevitable wear and tear happens, like those muscle spasms from the squatting, he doesn't risk a total system failure by pushing harder the next day.
Right, it manages the bugs.
Right. He manages the inflammation with water intake, heat pads, and massage. It is entirely about preserving the structural integrity of his physical mechanics.
I love that. If you know the server overheats when it processes more than 6,500 requests, you throttle the requests. You don't just keep pushing until the motherboard melts.
Exactly.
So if he's artificially capping his physical output to prevent a system crash, how does he handle the raw materials, the fuel that he's putting into that system to repair the daily wear and tear?
Well, he monitors his dietary inputs with that exact same analytical detachment. Over this specific week, his weight dropped to 68.94 kilograms.
And here's where it gets really interesting. He points out a massive aha moment based on his tracking.
Oh, the weight fluctuation.
Yeah. He noticed that on days following higher physical activity, his weight actually increased the next day.
Which is so common.
Right. I think a lot of people would completely panic if they worked out harder than usual and saw the scale go up 24 hours later. They would instantly think the diet is failing.
And that panic is exactly what causes people to abandon their fitness routines entirely, just out of sheer frustration.
Yeah.
But because he tracks the data objectively, without all that emotional baggage, he can look for the biological mechanism behind it. And he correctly identifies that higher physical activity leads to glycogen replenishment and temporary muscle inflammation.
Okay, let's unpack that mechanism for the listener real quick. When I'm sore after a workout, what is the scale actually measuring if it's not fat?
So when your muscles work hard, they deplete their stored energy, which is called glycogen.
Okay.
When you eat after that workout, your body rushes to replenish those glycogen stores. And here is the crucial part. Every gram of glycogen stored in the muscle binds to roughly 3 grams of water.
Wait, 3 grams?
Yeah, 3 to 1. Furthermore, the micro tears in the muscle fibers from the exercise cause temporary localized inflammation.
Right, which is why you get sore.
Exactly. Which means your body is pooling even more fluid in those areas to repair the tissue.
So the weight gain is literally just the water weight of the body repairing itself. It actually means the system is working perfectly.
Exactly that. It's a brilliant reminder that day-to-day weight tracking requires a much broader context. If you don't understand those underlying mechanics, you might panic over a temporary, completely natural biological response.
It's all about avoiding that unnecessary emotional friction.
Right.
And speaking of removing friction, we have to talk about his 2.1.1 restaurant hack.
Oh, this is so smart.
It really is. So his dietary input parameters are strict. He aims for a 2.1.1 ratio. That's 2 parts plants, 1 part protein, 1 part carbs.
Right. And he also practices intermittent fasting. He specifically mentions a 16.8 or a 5.2 setup.
Yeah, and he relies on green tea between meals to suppress his hunger.
Which is an excellent, stable framework when you're cooking in your own kitchen.
Oh, for sure. But the environment outside the home is rarely optimized for your personal dietary parameters.
No, not at all.
Eating out is usually where any diet ratio falls apart completely. You go to a restaurant, you order a meal, and you get like a giant mountain of pasta with maybe a tiny garnish of parsley.
Right, because the choice architecture of a restaurant is designed for flavor and cost, not your personal 2.1.1 ratio.
Exactly. But Eng's solution bypasses that entire problem. When he's ordering food out, he intentionally orders 2 portions of vegetables as side dishes.
That's it. That's the whole hack.
That is his entire hack. By simply doubling the plant input, he mathematically forces the meal back into that required 2.1.1 ratio, regardless of what the main course actually is.
It's so elegant because it removes the friction of decision-making.
Right. When you're hungry at a restaurant, your willpower is depleted. Trying to hunt down the one perfectly balanced menu item is exhausting. By just adding 2 sides of veggies, it's a real-world cheat code.
He describes it perfectly in his post, actually. He says, quote, "Small awareness and adjustment, but significant improvement."
I love that.
Yeah, he isn't trying to overhaul the restaurant's menu. He's just patching his own plate.
And this philosophy of small, highly practical adjustments bleeds right into his mental maintenance, too. Like, his meditation practice isn't about retreating to a silent mountaintop for an hour.
No, he mentions sitting meditations of just 1, 2, or 3 minutes.
Which sounds so doable.
Because it is. The problem with the mountaintop approach to mindfulness is that it creates a massive barrier to entry. If you think you need 30 perfect minutes of silence to meditate, you will rarely do it.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that.
Most people are. But Ang practices highly effective walking meditations right after meals, or, while he's raking leaves in the garden. He describes his approach as being stoic.
He is quite literally doing mental maintenance while doing physical yard maintenance.
Exactly. Integrating mindfulness directly into mundane chores reduces the barrier to entry to essentially zero. You don't need perfect conditions to execute the routine.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you really see the genius of his sustainability. The micro-habits compound over time without requiring these massive reserves of daily willpower.
That seamless integration between work and recovery naturally leads us into the final ecosystem we need to explore today, his hobbies, or kind of the concept of unoptimized play.
Right.
Ang makes a point that hobbies are crucial because they build skills, they give a sense of accomplishment, and they add purpose beyond the daily routine. But what struck me is the extreme duality of where he spends this free time.
You're referring to the contrast between his digital footprint and his physical reality.
Right, exactly. On the digital side, this guy operates like a machine. I mean, he's churning out 3 writing posts a day.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's reading fiction, though he admits he's currently stalled on a book called The 3 Highs. But then he spends his nights hopping through GitHub repositories, fixing typos and continuous integration issues for Elixir libraries, and tinkering with his own Python and Haskell projects.
And just for those unfamiliar with the terminology, when he says he's fixing continuous integration or CI issues, he is basically repairing the automated assembly line that tests other developers' code.
Oh, okay. So making sure it doesn't break when they update it.
Exactly. And Elixir and Haskell are highly complex programming languages. He is deeply embedded in the digital architecture of the internet, supporting open-source privacy projects like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the TWIR project, Wikipedia.
Right. He is a builder and a maintainer of this vast, abstract digital world. But then you look at his physical reality, and it is stunningly analog.
He really is.
He declutters exactly 1 small item from his house every single day. Just 1 item. And he does almost daily watering and weeding in the garden. But wait, why just 1 item? Why not spend a Sunday afternoon cleaning the whole house and getting it over with?
Because batch processing chores creates psychological dread.
Oh, that is so true.
If you tell yourself you have to clean the whole garage this weekend, you will procrastinate because the task feels immense. But by strictly limiting the task to 1 single item a day, he entirely removes the dread.
It's the compounding interest of micro-habits again.
Precisely. Over a year, that is 365 items removed from the house with 0 emotional friction.
It is such a grounded contrast to the boundless nature of the digital world. Like, you can write code forever, but the physical world imposes hard limits.
And he actively respects those physical limits.
Yeah.
For example, he notes in the post that he's delayed on building a plant rack because of the rainy season.
Right.
He can't code away the rain, so he simply pivots his focus to potting seedlings instead. He works with nature's constraints, just as he works with software constraints.
We see that same meticulous, almost investigative approach in his other offline hobbies, too. Like, he is trying to prime pairs of apistogramma cichlids, which, by the way, are these incredibly complex, beautiful freshwater fish for breeding.
Right.
He's visiting fish stores looking for the perfect pairs. He's researching the best macro lens for his mobile phone because his main DSLR camera is broken. He brings the exact same intense analytical focus to freshwater fish breeding and camera optics as he does to Haskell programming.
He does. But this actually raises a really profound psychological question about how we derive value from our free time in the modern world.
How so?
Well, if you look at his actual tangible results for the week in these hobbies, they aren't successful in a traditional outcome-driven way.
Oh, yeah, that's true. He didn't actually find any fish to buy at the stores.
Right, and he took 0 photo walks this week.
Mm-hmm.
His home improvement tasks, like hanging the curtains and fixing the tile grout in the front yard, are still pending.
Yeah, in a hyper-optimized culture, that sounds like a failed week.
Exactly. But the value of the hobby for Aang isn't in constant, immediate success.
The value is the process itself.
Yes. In psychology, this is known as an autotelic activity, doing something for the pure sake of the activity itself, rather than for some future benefit or external reward.
Which modern society struggles deeply with.
We really do. We feel the need to monetize our hobbies or at least be visibly productive at them. But for Aang, the joy is in the maintenance, the investigation of the macro lens, the visits to the fish stores, the pulling of the weeds.
The tinkering is the goal, not just the final product.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out and look at this 15-year archive and this one specific week in 2026, the core insight for you, the listener, is the sheer power of treating your life as a series of objective micro-adjustments.
Right.
You don't need a total dramatic overhaul to fix your life, whether it's capping your daily steps at 6,500 to save your knees from failing, or ordering a double side of veggies to instantly hack your diet ratio without thinking about it.
Or decluttering just one single item a day.
Exactly. Small, consistent patches keep the whole system running smoothly over the long haul.
It's a highly resilient way to look at human existence. Aang meticulously documents his weekly bug fixes and system updates in his This Week in Review. So I actually want to leave you with this final concept to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you had to sit down right now and write release notes for your own life this week, what would they look like?
Oh, wow. That is a brilliant way to reframe our daily struggles.
Right. Documenting your sleep bugs, the dietary patches you applied, your mental health updates. What would your patch notes say?
I really need to think about that.
Would viewing your life objectively, like an open source project that you're simply maintaining and refining, change the way you treat yourself tomorrow?
It really takes all the emotion and guilt out of our failures. I mean, when we mess up our diet or sleep poorly, we tend to judge ourselves so harshly.
We do.
But a software plumber doesn't get angry at the code. They just track down the bug, apply the patch, and keep the system running. A perfect reminder to observe, adjust, and try again. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.